Hello everyone, I'm bringing you a book review today, and this is Webbing at War Volume 2, again by Ed Hallett. I did review Volume 1 on the channel as well. Ed very kindly sent me Volume 1 for free so that I could review it, and he's done the same here with Volume 2. So a disclaimer at the start here, I was sent a free copy of the book to have a look at in order to make this video. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to have a look at this in a bit of detail, have a flick through, and hopefully it will inform you as to whether this is something you want to add to your library. So here we have it, Webbing at War Volume 2, the other wartime webbing sets, by Ed Hallett. And again, just to clarify here, I have been sent a copy of this free. This copy was sent to me free by Ed to review for the channel. So just so we're clear about that at the start here. So this deals with the Royal Navy's 1919 pattern. You have the 1925 pattern, the RAF 1925 pattern set. You have 1939 pattern leather equipment and the 1944 pattern web equipment as well. So we'll have a look through this, and we'll have a look through each section. You can see here details of the contents here. Oh, the 1940 pattern set as well, I neglected to mention that, the cavalry equipment, the cavalry web equipment, of course. And some people might say, well, obviously the information, a lot of information in here is included on Khaki Web, where you can access it free online, which is true. However, this book is very nicely presented. It's nice to have the information in print, and from that point of view, as we'll see, it's quite nicely laid out. There's some good original photographs of the equipment in use as well, and from that point of view, this is a nice publication. So we'll have a flick through, and obviously from having a quick look at each section, you'll perhaps be able to decide whether or not this is something you'd like to add to your library. So my idea initially is to take you through the different sections and have a look at a quick look at each section. So you have the introduction here. And then Chapter 2 deals with the 1919 pattern, the naval equipment, and again some nice period photographs in here from the interwar years and wartime use, dealing with the 1919 pattern, obviously extracts from fitting instructions and so forth as well included. So a quick flick through this, and you can see the various components of the equipment covered in detail here. And then we'll move on to the 1925 pattern set, and again there's some nice period photographs included in the section showing the equipment in use, and obviously extracts from the fitting instructions as well, as you can see. We have details of both the blue, grey and the khaki versions of the 1925 pattern equipment. This is the equipment which I have a set of, which I mentioned previously, which is sometimes referred to as the 1927 pattern. The Afghan Army set, which is of course very similar to 1925 pattern. So we have that there, something I've covered previously on the channel. Quite nice that that's included. Details of brace attachments and so forth there, the pistol equipment, and interestingly the two-part rucksack, of course, which is an interesting element of the design. You can see that there, and a set of the equipment laid out there with cartridge carriers as rifle equipment. So 1925 pattern dealt with in some detail there. And then we have something which I will mention here as well, actually, which I nearly neglected to mention there, is the inclusion of source codes, which is included for several of the different sets, 1925 pattern, 1944 pattern, quite a useful element there to have those noted down. Moving on to the 1939 pattern equipment, it deals with a little bit of the history behind why it was required, why it was produced rather, and then obviously details of the various elements of the equipment again. It's essentially a leather version of 1937 pattern, of course. So details of that there. I say the photographs in this are quite nicely produced. I did comment, I think in Volume 1, that some of the photographs were not that well reproduced, a little bit grainy and so forth. I've not encountered that in Volume 2. They're all quite nicely reproduced. And then we're moving on to the 1940 pattern equipment here. And this, of course, is the cavalry web equipment. The cavalry version of 1937 pattern, I guess you could say, or the cavalry equivalent thereof, which didn't see a great amount of service, of course, but it's an interesting set of equipment. Some nice photographs of working patterns, sealed patterns dotted throughout the book where they were available, so that's nice as well. And then we continue flicking through. Further details there, obviously sets of equipment for officers as well, dealt with there. And the peculiar fittings that we use with 1940 pattern. And then we move on to the 1944 pattern web equipment, which of course is part of the late war jungle equipment, or associated with the late war jungle equipment. It's the webbing component of that equipment. Interesting, of course, in that it was a set of equipment designed from the ground up for use in tropical environment. And from that point of view, I think it's the first time, or the only time, the British Army's ever designed a full set of equipment basically intended to provide the soldier with everything they need for a specific environment. So interesting from that point of view, and obviously covered in some detail. We've had a look at 1944 pattern on the channel in some detail previously, but you can see here the web equipment and some of the associated items like the canteen, or the water bottle rather, are covered. And you can see here we have the ammunition case and compass case for use by, well, not only by officers of course, but those issued with pistols and those issued with compasses. Used extensively post-war. The officers' haversack. The other components, obviously the later haversack. The rucksack is dealt with in here as well, as you can see, which is something we've covered on the channel previously. Again, nice illustrations of how the components fit together. And then various appendix for the GS manpack carrier, which again is associated with the 1944 pattern equipment, but of course isn't. We have stores codes detailed there. And again, nice illustration there of how this could be used to carry various things strapped to it. So you've got a medical haversack there, possibly the shell dressing bag, and then a load carried up on top as well. And some end notes here, which are useful regarding references and so forth. So it's quite a detailed book. There's quite a lot in there, and it's nicely presented, as I say. So hopefully, having had a look through this here, a quick flick through, will sort of inform you as to whether this is something you want to add to your library. But that's it, Webbing at War Volume 2, the other wartime webbing sets, obviously moving beyond 1937 pattern, basically. I hope you found it interesting flicking through this in the video here, and hopefully that you found it informative as to whether or not this is something you'd like to purchase yourself. Obviously, as I mentioned at the start, Ed did send me Volume 1 to look through as well, and that's been covered elsewhere on the channel. There's a video looking through that, and again, that might be useful if you're looking at picking up either of these volumes. I hope you found it interesting, as I say. If you have, and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And as I always say, a really big thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It really is greatly appreciated. I want to say a big thank you to all of you. Thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address in the description as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now. And I think, are you going to come in and assist, Apollo? Wonderful. Thank you for that. Excellent. So shall we start again then?